Hello and welcome back to goldstocktrades.com. Today we have a special guest with us, Dennis Higgs, Chairman of Uranerz Energy. Uranerz is traded both on the Amex and the Toronto Stock Exchange as URZ. Thanks, Dennis, for being here with us today.
Thank you, Jeb.
Dennis, in 2012, I'm noticing an increase in interest in uranium stocks, especially near-term producers. Currently, Uranerz has doubled from 52-week lows in late 2011. Can you comment on the current state of the uranium sector, and where do you see Uranerz positioned for this renewed interest?
Sure. First of all, the uranium market, we had the event in Japan last year that caused the uranium sector to go for quite a tumble. And by October of last year, the uranium equities had suffered quite dramatically, some losing as much as 70% of their market value since that Japanese earthquake last year. But more recently, this year in 2012, we're seeing the uranium sector coming back dramatically. As you mentioned, our stock has doubled since October lows, and there's a couple of reasons for that. Just looking at the uranium sector or the uranium pricing itself, the spot price seems to have stabilized in about the $52 to $53 per pound range. There's a couple things though that I think are garnering some strong interest in the uranium spot price itself. And one of the events that occurred recently is that ERA, Energy Resources of Australia, reported that the Ranger mine has flooded again with significant rain in December of last year, and that's delayed dewatering of what's called pit number 3, which has delayed the company's access to high-grade material in that pit. So they may not be able to meet their original guidance for 2012 uranium production. Just so you're aware, Energy Resources of Australia is one of the largest uranium producers in the world, producing around 8% of the world's mined uranium production. And if we look back into 2006, 2007, when the uranium price spiked up to $137 a pound, one of the events that sparked that rapid climb in the spot uranium price was the flooding of the Cigar Lake project of Cameco's. But the crowning event back then in 2007 was again the flooding of the Energy Resources of Australia's Ranger mine because a cyclone came through and curtailed production there. So I think that's one of the things that sparked some more recent interest. Of course, there's been a couple other producers that have reported good results. So all these factors are creating a strong interest in uranium. Now, coming specifically to Uranerz, we're well financed at this time. We we received all of our licenses on the federal level and the state level to build our in-situ recovery, or I'm going to call it ISR, uranium mine in Wyoming, and we're under construction right now. We expect to be finished construction sometime this summer and start producing uranium second half of this year. So this strong interest in the uranium sector is definitely a good timing for us.
You're well funded and you're fully permitted for construction. Could you give us an update on the construction at Nichols Ranch? I noticed a news item that was released this morning. Could you give us some insight into the construction update?
Yes, just talking about construction. Sure, there's two facets to our construction right now. We're building our main processing plant along with our office and laboratory and maintenance and so on. That's ongoing at Nichols Ranch. And then the other part of the construction is the installation of the well field for production. So on both factors, we're doing very well. We've been very fortunate with weather. We haven't had a really bad snowstorm out there in the Powder River Basin area of Wyoming yet this year. So we've been able to work effectively to get our foundations in and put our buildings up. We have all of our buildings up now, including the central processing plant. We have all of our equipment installed inside the plant, things such as ion exchange columns and tanks and sand filters. And We've also got our cement silos up and running, and the water supply. So all of that's gone very well. And on the well field installation, we just reported yesterday that we had to start, of course, by putting our monitor wells in. Those were all completed by December of last year. And then we started putting in what we call production wells, and we've so far put in 34 production wells and so on. The news release that you mentioned is that that came out this morning is that when we put in our production wells, we log every hole so that we can determine the grade of uranium at that location. And we reported this morning 9 of those holes. We were getting very, very high grades for in-situ recovery type mining, grades as high as 0.9% uranium over thicknesses of 8 feet. So this is turning out to be very exciting as we develop this project area.
You mentioned before about being located in the Powder River Basin in Wyoming. When you look at the map that Uranerz, the land position, can you tell us about some of your neighbors and why you're in a very enviable part of Wyoming?
Sure. The Powder River Basin is well known for uranium production. In fact, it's had continuous uranium production in the Powder River Basin, I think, since the 1950s, 1957, I believe, continuous uranium production. There are 2 main operators there now. One of them is Cameco, and the other is Uranium One. And those 2 companies are 2 of the largest ISR uranium mines in the world. And they're our neighbors in the Powder River Basin. And we have a very large and strategic land position in that area. We have about 87,000 acres, or 137, follow what's called a reduction oxidation boundary. So those deposits, that boundary weaves and bobs all through that part of Wyoming, that Powder River Basin area. And it goes through our ground, and it might go through our neighboring ground, which might be Cameco, and then it'll go through Uranium One's ground and then back into ours. So you need to have this redox boundary on your property, and we have over 300 miles of this redox boundary on our project area in the Powder River Basin. Currently, Cameco is developing a project called the North Butte property, which is actually adjoins our West North Butte project area, and Uranium One is developing and has been developing the Christensen Ranch. Both companies have production in the Powder River Basin, so we've got some good neighbors. Both of them are producing in that area, and as we've mentioned, we're headed towards production by the end of the year ourselves. So very exciting, again, to be in this part of Wyoming.
Dennis, could you tell us about the recently signed processing agreement with Cameco? How does this benefit both companies?
Sure. Cameco is the largest public uranium company in the world. I've already mentioned they're a neighbor in the Powder River Basin, and just to the south of us, they've got a processing plant. Actually, they've got 2 processing plants, and they have some excess capacity down there. So, from our perspective, we're building our first operation now, and I've already mentioned we're building our central processing plant. It saves us a significant amount of capital to not have to install certain parts of that plant that Cameco already has to the south of us. Things such as the elution circuit, the precipitation circuits, and the dryer. So what we will do is we will install only the ion exchange columns and the facilities that go with that part of taking the uranium from the ground and getting it into what's called a resin. And then we'll ship our resin down to Cameco's facility, where they will do the last part of the processing for us. And so it saves us a significant amount of capital initially that we don't have to install in our plant. And of course, for Cameco, we think it's a win-win situation because they have excess capacity that's not being utilized. And so for them, it allows us to process our resins down there and their facility active. And of course, we pay them a fee for that. So it's a win-win situation for both of us.
Dennis, one final question. Could you give us an update on some of the corporate goals for 2012?
Sure. Our goals are always to, of course, immediate goal is to get us into production, producing uranium, and our target for initial targeted production level is about 600 to 800,000 pounds a year. And then, of course, we have to develop our other project areas to increase our production levels. So we're looking to continue to develop. For example, we're permitting right now the Jane Doe area, which is our property area south of Nichols Ranch, and bring that online. And we'll do that as an amendment to our existing licenses that we now have at Nichols Ranch. And so one of our goals then will be to increase our production levels and, of course, increase our resources. We have a very large strategic land position in the Powder River Basin, firstly, so we'll continue to develop that to increase our resources. And then, of course, we're always looking at other project areas to increase our resource base as well.